This mafia family has the weirdest and saddest banishment ever. Antonio had been a trusted member of the Giovanni family for over 20 years. He had done things for them, terrible things, without question. He was respected, feared, and loyal to the family. But loyalty in the mafia came at a steep price. Michael, Antonio's childhood friend, had taken a different path. While Antonio stayed with the Giovanni family, Michael had left the streets behind and became a cop. Over the years, they drifted apart, but one day Michael reached out to Antonio, asking to meet. Antonio, out of loyalty to an old friend, agreed. That was his mistake. Michael was working undercover, building a case against the Giovanni family. Their conversation was being recorded, and though Antonio didn't reveal anything incriminating, meeting with a cop was a betrayal in the mafia world. It was all the family needed to turn on him. Word spread quickly. The Giovanni family didn't waste time. Meeting with Michael was seen as an act of treason. Salvatore Giovanni summoned Antonio to a meeting, a final judgment. The family gathered in a dimly lit room, the tension thick in the air. Antonio tried to explain, but it didn't matter. The rules were simple: no contact with law enforcement. Breaking that rule meant death, but Salvatore wasn't ready to kill him. Instead, Salvatore made his decision: banishment. Antonio would walk through the streets wearing the tie of shame. It was a tradition in the Giovanni family, a fate worse than death, a public humiliation for all to see. The tie of shame was a symbol passed down through generations in the Giovanni family. It was long, heavy, and worn by those marked as traitors. It was a statement, a weight that no one could escape. Antonio stood in the town square, the tie wrapped tightly around his neck, dragging behind him as he walked. The streets were lined with people, watching in silence. These were the same people he had known his whole life. As Antonio walked, every step was slower than the last. He felt something was off. The banishment was meant to be humiliating, but the family's silence was too heavy. The further Antonio walked, the emptier the streets became. The family had stopped following, but Antonio knew someone was still watching. Antonio reached the edge of town, believing he had survived. He thought he could disappear, but just as he reached the end of the road, a gunshot pierced the silence. Antonio fell to the ground, and the cold realization set in. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was Michael, his old friend.